should pay for the date, the man or the woman? Now, obviously, hundreds of years ago or even decades ago, we would not be asking this question. The obvious answer would be the man pays for the date because the man has the money. Generally, the men were the only earners at that time, and women did not have their own income. So it would be an obvious answer. But in the cultural context in which we live, women earn just as much as men. In fact, for some women, they earn a lot more than the men in their lives, and they're more highly educated than the men in their lives. So the question then becomes a very relevant one. Who should pay for the date? Should it be the one who earns more money? Should it be a 50-50 arrangement, or does it not matter? Should it be the man? Should it continue to be the man paying for the date? Are there other principles that transcend time and transcend culture that help us address answering this question? And I believe that, there are such principles, even though our culture today praises the independent woman for not needing a man, for being able to take care of herself. And this independent woman doesn't need a man to pay for her date. She doesn't need a man to pay for her dinner. She doesn't need a man to contribute anything financially for her because she has it all together. She can take care of herself. I believe that the man should still pay for the date, even though women are earners now in our society. And I know that response might seem very archaic, but when we think about how we are as women, we are definitely more delicate than men. Yes, some of us can be strong as well, but we're still delicate beings deep down inside. We still long for someone to treat us as if we are the most precious beings in the world to them. We still long for someone to care for us and to nurture us and to just treat us with gentleness and love. We long for that as women. And, even when we look at fathers and their relationship with their daughters, generally fathers have a harder time disciplining their daughters because the daughters are just more delicate than their sons. They'll have no problems disciplining the son. They'll have no problem being harsh with the son. But with the daughters, they're gentle. They can even spoil the daughters and shower them. And for some women who've never had that experience of a father figure treating them in that way, or any man in their lives treating them that way, it can almost be a defense mechanism to protect ourselves because we've never experienced that. We've never experienced having that desire to be nurtured and taken care of, fulfilled. Therefore, instead, we've seen the women in our lives have to do it themselves. We've seen them have to provide for themselves and their children. And we've seen situations in which the men could care less about carrying that burden financially. And because of that, for some of us as women, we want to be smart about it. And we realize, what? I can't. Not that I don't want to be able to look to a man to carry the financial burden. But I just can't. I can't depend on a man because the men that I've seen have never stepped up to the plate in that way. But in spite of all of that, I still believe that deep down inside, as women, we have that desire. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that desire. God created us that way. Now, obviously, it doesn't mean that as women, we don't work, we don't contribute financially in any way. But I do believe that the Bible speaks to God's design of the man carrying that burden and that weight. The Bible talks about a man who does not provide for his household as being worse than an infidel. Those are not very kind words. So for God, he designed it that way, in which the man would carry that burden. Even when we look at the curses that were given to Adam and Eve after sin, when Eve sinned, she had her own curse. Her own curse was that she would bear children in pain, and her desire would be for her husband. He would rule over her. For the man, his curse was that he would have to eat bread in the sweat of his brow. Man would have to work intensely to eat and to have his basic needs fulfilled. That was not the curse of the woman. So now, when the woman bears that financial burden and responsibility to provide the basic needs, she's taking on the curse of the man. She's shouldering the man's curse in addition to her own curse. So who should pay for the date? I think if we consider the biblical principles, the man should pay for the date. Why? Because in paying for the date, the man demonstrates that he understands that God-given role and responsibility to shoulder the burden financially. Now, who pays for the date? Obviously, this is in the context of a young woman who is seriously courting, prayerfully dating, and wants to know if this is the man God has for her, if this man is husband material. Once you're married, who pays for the date? Answering that question would take a different tone. So I'm not speaking in that context. And I'm not speaking in the context of a woman who is casually dating. But in the context of a woman who is seriously, prayerfully dating, the man should pay for the date. And as a woman, we are the weaker vessel. We're described as the weaker vessel in the Word of God. And studies have also shown that we are more deeply impacted, we're more negatively affected by stress than men. And finances can be a major source of stress. So as a woman, if we want to be cautious and we want to protect ourselves and make sure that we don't enter into a lifelong situation in which the man is putting that stress and that burden on us, then we do need to be asking this question: does the man look to me to pay for the dates? Or is he stepping up to the plate and paying for the dates? And obviously, there are many circumstances surrounding this issue, many factors to take into consideration. A young woman might be dating a man who is a student, who cannot earn for one reason or another, and she is the one making money. In that situation, should she still expect the man to pay for the date if he has no money? In that situation, I would say the woman still needs to be prayerfully observing and discerning to see what the man's perspective is on this issue. A man who, even in that situation of not being in a favorable place financially, even in that situation, a man who understands his role to carry that weight financially will not be comfortable with the woman paying for everything. He will not be comfortable going out to dinners, going here and there, knowing that he can't pay, knowing that the woman will have to pay for herself and for him. If, as a young woman, you desire a man who senses that role to carry the burden financially, then let him pay for the date. And if he's not in a situation to afford dates, don't suggest all these different things to do that cost money. Let him take the lead. See if he suggests things that cost money, knowing that he can't pay for it, knowing that you'll have to pay for it, or whether he'll be creative and suggest dates that cost no money, because he won't be comfortable looking to you to pay for everything? I believe this question is not as inconsequential as it might appear to be on the surface. It will give us insight into where the man is, into what his approach is on this issue. And as women, we have to ask that question now. We can't ask the question after we say I do and we've made a lifelong commitment. We need to ask that question now. And we may not ask the question verbally to the man. We may simply just observe. Watch to see. Does he pay for the date, or does he expect me to pay for the date?